Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the program. I'm Jackson Gosnell, sitting in for Wyatt today. Want to bring in a political expert. We're talking politics today and all about the 2024 presidential election. Joel Rubin is here. He is former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State and a political expert. Joel, thanks for being with us.
Awesome to be with you. Thanks, Jackson.
For sure. So there is a lot of talk about this upcoming presidential election. We know that some Republicans have went ahead and entered the race. As a Democratic strategist, a lot of people in the political arena, they're kind of wondering, will Biden run? What's your take? You monitor a lot in that area.
Yeah, this is Joe Biden's race to run, and it looks like he is ready to go. He clearly hasn't made a public announcement yet. But his performance at the State of the Union was superb. And I think that really was the last little window testing whether or not the party and the voters would coalesce behind him. And we've seen a spike in polls since then. He did great. And I think he went off to Kyiv on his own in the dark of night, showing strong leadership. He's really ready. And I think he's going to be the one.
What do you make of the Republicans who have entered the race so far? Obviously, the former president, Donald Trump, now Nikki Haley, former governor of South Carolina, and also a businessman just entering a few days ago. What do you make of those candidates, and do you expect more?
Well, certainly it's Donald Trump's to lose. He has demonstrated capacity in 2016 in particular, where he can take on a whole slew of different candidates who look like they're really strong and just knock them out quickly. And I think that's why we're seeing some hesitance by Ron DeSantis, quite frankly, who seems to be the lead alternative to him. But, he has weakened. His brand has weakened. Potentially Republican voters are looking for someone else. But I just have this gnawing feeling inside that when he gets rolling, he's going to really be the one to beat. And, his campaign has been listless so far. It's not really much of a campaign. He's not getting the kind of mainstream media coverage that he would need to really lead. And certainly there are these other candidates like Nikki Haley in particular who are jumping in to try to provide an alternative. But the Republican base loves Donald Trump. And once he does get rolling, and it looks like late June, July, they might have their first real debate. I think we're then going to see his numbers spike quite a bit inside the Republican Party.
Do you think somebody like Nikki Haley is what that party needs? Do you think that she will get any support? Polls currently seem to show that she's kind of behind, but maybe stepping up just a little bit. Do you see her taking the lead at some point, or do you think it's going to need to be a more staunch, conservative stance type of person like DeSantis, who hasn't even said whether or not he's entering the race?
Well, we have this paradox right now on the Republican side, which is that there are candidates who want to be the alternative, but they don't want to offer up any alternative ideas. There's really no policy difference at all right now. And between Nikki Haley, for example, and Donald Trump, and Nikki Haley's trying to ensure that that's the case. They understand that the base of the Republican Party likes the Trump agenda, the MAGA agenda. That's good. That's how you win. So she's really straining to show difference. Now, clearly her personal bio is different. She argued the generational difference. The Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the governor of Arkansas, made this generational argument as well without attacking Donald Trump. Nikki Haley with this sort of quirky idea of taking a mental test at age set for those 75 and above. That's how she's distinguishing. I think that's going to be harmful to her because ultimately voters want to vote for something affirmative. Even in polling of Republicans, looking at what in the heartland, what motivates voters, these social issues, they have a ceiling. It's the economic issues. It's sort of people's jobs, quality of life, that kind of stuff. And does she have an agenda, an affirmative agenda? It's different from Donald Trump's more America First agenda. I don't think so. And so in some ways, I liken it to why buy a Diet Coke if you can have the real thing. And I think that's what it's going to look like in that Republican primary.
I want to switch back to the Democratic side of this. We've been talking about the Republican side of this. You mentioned how Nikki Haley wants this cognitive test for politicians who are, in their elderly years. Do you think that President Biden's age is going to be a factor that limits him in terms of performance, not only in, just everyday policy decisions and so forth, but in the election as well?
Yeah, Jackson, I think the only way we can assess performance is by looking at how he's actually performing. And nothing about his age has hindered his ability to perform in this job. We have seen 2+ years now of Joe Biden as the president. And as the president, he is vigorous, passed one of the most significant 2-year periods of legislation in the post-World War II Congress, in the history of the Congress. A couple $1 trillion of money moving through the system, landmark legislation to fund clean energy and to try to combat climate change, pulling us out of COVID, organizing the global community against Russia's invasion of Ukraine, traveling, as we discussed, to Kyiv, speaking at the State of the Union in a way, taunting Republicans and catching them on Social Security, where they're now backtracking every day about their long-term desire to get rid of Social Security. So I'm not worried about it at all. I do think it's a talking point that likes to be brought up because there's an ageism against elderly people in leadership roles. But we have a lot of people in their 80s and in their 70s who are leading corporate America, leading in the Congress, and he's demonstrated he can handle the job.
Do you think anybody challenges him? I know that you worked on Bernie Sanders' campaign, and I've recently seen interviews with Bernie Sanders, among other people. Do you think that challengers will arise?
I don't think there will be any challenger to Joe Biden if and when he announces for president. I just see no interest in changing the direction of the Democratic Party's policy positions right now. Progressives love Joe Biden too. Pramila Jayapal, the leader of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, has already come out strongly endorsing him, supporting him, saying great things about him. So the typical alternative candidates would come from that part of the party, and that part of the party likes what Joe Biden has done. And so I think once he says, I'm in, then that's it. And then the question will be motivating and mobilizing voters and getting them out to vote. That's the key thing for Democrats, is making sure that our people come out. If they come out, we win. We saw that in the midterms in 22, where we had an historically successful performance for a midterm in the first year of a president's term, in the first midterm, that is, of his first term. So it's really about turnout. And the alternatives right now, there's nobody stepping up because nobody sees the need to have an alternative set of policies.
Well, the president's approval rating has been under fire for a long time. Ever since he took office, there's been all these pieces of information coming out that his approval rating is terrible and so forth. Do you think that Americans want 4 more years of Joe Biden, or do you think they'll choose somebody else?
And this is sort of the big question, right? Like, is there an alternative? Now, if you compare President Biden to President Trump, I think we have seen a couple of elections now where Donald Trump would lose. President Biden's numbers now are actually at the best level they've been since the withdrawal from Afghanistan in August of 2021, when they really did hit a low point. He's now surging amongst Democrats, 49% support for when combined with independents on the national level. So really, the numbers are strong enough. And what we're also, again, going through this discussion of turning people out, it's about turnout, and it's about winning the states that have to be won. It's about the upper Midwest and Michigan and Ohio, Pennsylvania, of course, there as well, Wisconsin. These are states that the president took. In Georgia, we just saw a Democrat win in Senate race. In Arizona, likewise, key swing states where Democrats have been doing well and structurally are in a very strong position to continue to win in those states. And so his approval ratings, as they continue to climb, and as we saw from the midterm, strong results, mobilizing and motivating the base, in particular against Donald Trump, will be the high priority. I think we'll see Democrats able to do that against the Trump candidacy, and so Biden is in position right now to get reelected.
All right, and before I let you go, you mentioned that, everybody kind of likes what's happening in terms of the Democratic space. If the presidential election proves to go the other way, or perhaps not go as you expected, do you think Democrats will win in other areas, in other offices, other elections? Just as a whole, how are you feeling about the party right now?
Well, the gains in these midterms last November really gave a shot in the arm to Democratic strategists. There was a sort of a media narrative out there that it would be impossible for Democrats to hold Congress, and that there would be a red wave, a 30 or 40 seat advantage for Republicans in the House. And that didn't materialize. And why didn't that materialize? It's very clear it didn't materialize because Democrats, we turned out, because there were accomplishments to run on, because there was a recognition that the alternative would be so significantly worse. And we're already seeing it with the House leadership and the kinds of extreme social issues obsessed leadership that we have right now in the House. That is not where Democrats want to go. And so, I think that we're going to see a lot of excitement amongst Democrats heading into 24. If it turns out, as you're describing, though, the House, it's so narrow that very well Democrats could take the House back. It's going to be hard with the Senate. There's 2/3 of the seats that are up are going to be the Democratic seats, and that's going to be a much harder slog. But typically in a presidential year, turnout for those congressional races does spike as well. And that's where all of this comes together. And I think we're going to see a strong performance amongst Democrats across the board, just as we did in 22, but with the presidential race on the ticket and an even stronger one. And we'll take the House as well as the White House.
All right, Joel Rubin, thanks so much. I know you'll keep an eye on things, and we'll check back in with you soon, hopefully. Thanks for joining me.
My pleasure. Thanks, Jackson.